You know, we always hear that storytelling is a business superpower. And it is. It helps us sell, it helps us persuade, it helps us motivate our teams. But what if that same superpower has a dark side? Today we're going to dive into something called the story trap. And we're going to find out why, sometimes, the data tells a much, much better tale.
I know what you're thinking. That sounds kind of weird, right? I mean, how can a good story be a bad thing? Well, crafting a compelling narrative is an amazing skill for influencing other people. The real danger pops up when we start telling those stories to ourselves. That's when our big decisions can start resting on a good story instead of, cold hard facts.
So let's break this down. On one hand, stories are fantastic. They're amazing for getting teams on the same page, sparking new ideas, and keeping everybody motivated and fired up. But the minute the conversation shifts to things like process, results, and efficiency, that exact same skill can suddenly become a huge roadblock.
Here it is in a nutshell. The very thing that helps us be creative can also be the thing that hides the truth about how we're actually performing. We start building these convenient narratives to explain away problems instead of actually digging in and solving them. And this happens because of a cognitive bias that we're going to call the filter.
Okay, so what is the filter? Well, think of it like a pair of glasses we all wear. It's the mental lens that takes objective reality, the black and white facts of what's happening, and colors it with our own experiences, our assumptions, and our biases. It helps us create a story that feels totally true, even when it's not.
And listen, it's really important to get this. This isn't about people being dishonest. Not at all. It's just a natural mental shortcut our brains take. We all use stories to make sense of a complicated world. The problem is, in a business setting, that shortcut can lead us down some seriously wrong paths and to some really flawed decisions. And this filter? It's actually made up of several different layers.
Let's see how this thing gets built, layer by layer. It all starts with simple opinions, preconceived notions we have. Over time, those can harden into these unquestioned beliefs. Then we start making personal assessments, calling a process good or bad without any objective way to measure it. From there, we speculate to fill in any information gaps, we misapply past experience to justify why we shouldn't change, and sometimes we even rely on sloppy, manual data, which tells its own skewed, incomplete story.
So, what does this filter actually sound like, out in the wild at work? Well, I bet you've heard these phrases before. Heck, you've probably said them yourself. I know I have. They're the little stories that can stop progress dead in its tracks.
Ah, this one. The classic progress killer. It sounds so final, doesn't it? So definitive. It's presented like this hard-won fact that's based on experience. But more often than not, it's just a story we tell ourselves to shut down a new idea before it even gets a chance. See, what's happening here is a belief is pretending to be a conclusion. It completely shuts down all the important questions. Like, okay, but why didn't it work last time? Have things changed since then? Could we try it a different way? Nope. The story's finished, so all exploration just stops.
And oh boy, here's another one. This phrase uses the past not as a source of wisdom, but as a justification for just not doing anything differently right now.
Look, experience is invaluable, right? We need it to solve problems. But when it's used to explain why things can't be better, that's when it becomes a barrier. It's a story that basically says, don't even bother trying to improve this, when a huge improvement might be sitting right there waiting to be found. So how in the world do we fight back against the filter? We can't just think harder to get out of it. We need a tool. And if the filter is this thick, soupy fog of stories and beliefs, then objective, automated data is like a high-powered flashlight that just slices right through it. Think about it. This data flashlight, it doesn't have an opinion. It doesn't have a bad day. It just sees. It logs every single event automatically. It records every little disruption with minute-by-minute precision. And crucially, it identifies the root causes of problems based on rules and facts, not arguments. It creates one single source of truth that the entire team can look at together.
Okay, theory time is over. Let's see what actually happens when you switch on that flashlight. Here are two real-world examples that show the pretty dramatic difference between a filtered belief and a simple, data-driven fact.
This is a perfect one. So in this company, the big story, was our machines are old and unreliable. I mean, everyone believed it, from the folks on the production floor all the way up to management. But when they turned on that data flashlight, boom, the truth was something completely different. The number one cause of downtime wasn't machine breakdowns at all. It was a logistics problem. They were just running out of raw materials. The story was just plain wrong.
This next case is really interesting because it's not just one story, it's two conflicting personal stories butting heads. You have two different operators working on the exact same machine with totally different ideas about the right way to do the job.
So on one side, you have operator A. His story is, faster is better. He's gunning for that production bonus. Then you have operator B. Her story is, slower and steadier wins the race. She believes a slower pace prevents defects and keeps the machine from jamming. Both of them have a story that makes perfect sense, right? So, who's right?
And, well, the data showed that neither of them had the full picture. Operator A, the fast one, did produce more parts per hour, but he also caused way more downtime because of jams and defects. Meanwhile, Operator B was super safe and reliable, but her output was just too low to be efficient.
And here's the magic. The data didn't take sides. It didn't say, you're right and you're wrong. It just revealed an objective, optimal speed, a sweet spot that was faster than Operator B's pace, but slower and more controlled than Operator A's. It turned a personal conflict into a constructive conversation, and they found a solution that was better than either of their original stories.
And this really gets to a much bigger point here. This isn't just about installing some new software or looking at a dashboard. Introducing this kind of data flashlight is about fundamentally changing a company's culture. It's a shift in how people talk, how they solve problems, and even how they see their own jobs.
Now let's be real, that kind of change isn't always a walk in the park. When you shine a bright light on problems that were maybe smoothed over before, you're going to get a mix of reactions. Some people are thrilled. Finally, we can see what's actually going on. But others, they might feel a little defensive or even try to deny the data because it directly challenges a story they've been telling themselves and others for years.
It is so important to keep the real goal front and center. This is not about pointing fingers or proving someone's story was wrong. The one and only goal is to use real, objective facts to find and fix the real root causes of problems, which in the long run helps everybody and improves the bottom line. Ultimately, what we're talking about here is a huge cultural shift. You move from a culture of belief, where everyone's busy defending their own personal story, to a culture of curiosity, where everyone is genuinely interested in what the data can teach them. It's about asking, what's actually happening here, instead of just saying, let me tell you what I think is happening. And that really just leads us with one final question for you to think about. What about your team? What are the common stories, the accepted truths that you hear every single day? And maybe more importantly, what do you think would happen if you turned on the flashlight? What would the data really say? Thanks for joining us.